Hello and welcome to my video. First of all, I'm just going to give you a quick run through of the front end of my web application. So it's based around football teams instead of using the movie API data. So I'm getting API data for football teams instead. And I'm also using Firebase for logins, which I'll just take a look at first of all. So if you look at Firebase here, you can see that I already have a couple of users set up. What I'll do first is I'll register a user just to show that, just to display that I suppose this is actually working. So we're on the register page currently. So what I'll do is, as you can see, I don't have a user that is call@test.com, but I'll register this new user call@test.com. And then I'll just put in the password 12345 So again, refresh this just to show that there is no user there. And I'll register this account now, and it will automatically log me in. And as you can see, when I refresh this page again, we have the new user call@test.com. So I'm now logged in with the user, and I'm brought first of all to the team's dashboard. So the team's dashboard will display a number of teams based on the parameters selected from the drop-down menu. So there's a lot of highly selectable here. So if I select the championship, which is the division below, you get all the other teams, and again, divisions below that. And you can also customize this by year as well. So next, we have the team itself. So if I select a team here, we can see that it pulls in a couple of images from the API endpoint. And also I have a table here with some details of each team as well. So that's really the dashboard page with the drop-down menus. Next, I'll go to the fixtures page. So the fixtures page, I actually created a calendar component for this, and I'm also using the drop-down menu component. So if I select some dates, you can see that we have different fixtures. So I suppose a lot of these will be results in the past from teams that have already played, and you also have fixtures in the future. Unfortunately, when I added the hyperlinks, it kind of messed up my table a bit. But I also have hyperlinks, which will bring you to the teams page also as well. So that's really the fixtures page there. So we have three components really. So we have the fixtures table, the drop-down menu again to select the league, and then the calendar component. And then lastly, we have the standings table. So this will just basically show a table per league of each of the teams and their position within the table. So again, we have the hyperlinks here. So I can select teams from the standings table, and I can also select the year that I'd like to take a look at. So they're the major features, and also log out and log in. So again, and we also have forgot password too. So they're the major features. With regard to being logged in, I have also these protected routes. So I'll just show that. So if I log out and try and access the dashboard page, you can see that that's not possible. It will just return me to this page again. So they're the major features. And next, I'll just go through my code in a little bit more detail. Well, next, I'd just like to take a look at some of the code that I've created to build the web application. So I'll start with the where I'm fetching the API data. So I've had to add this options variable here that would allow me to add in these headers. So it took me a while to figure this one out, but I eventually learned that I could put them inside or just after when I call the endpoint, and then that would allow me to have the XRapid API key and XRapid API host. And of course, this API key is a variable that I've created here, and this is coming from the env file, which I have a lot of parameters in. So I'm fetching data in multiple different ways. So we've get teams, and I'm passing parameters here for the year and also the league ID, which I'll go into in a bit more code in the pages as well. So these are being passed from the page as parameters to be able to fetch that data or pass in that data. Get team, so that's get a single team based on their ID. again, I'm passing in the ID as a parameter. Get fixtures by date, so passing the date and the league ID in as parameters from the page, and then also get standings by league. So next, I'd just like to take a quick look at some of the components. One example of this is the calendar component, which I'm using on the fixtures page here. So really, this is a calendar component that or a feature that I'm just importing from React Calendar. So this is just something that I had found online that I could add in. And what I'm doing here is I'm using actually this in a lot of ways in many of my components. So I wanted to be able to pass the data back up from the component up to the page. So this way, I'll go into a bit more detail when I go to the actual page itself and go through the code there, but I'm passing, so I'm setting the date of the calendar. So I'm taking the date state and then setting it in set date state. And then to be able to pass that data back up to the page, then I'm using this props.function, and that's able to pass then the date back up to the page, which I can then also send onto the football API, so that I can use that date to set the endpoint. Another component that I have also are these drop-down menus. So I have the drop-down menu for the year, and I also have the drop-down menu for the league. So how I'm using these is I'm just creating an array here called options. And then again, I'm using this function to be able to pass the value up to the page again. So that can be used to request the API data. But with regard to the drop-down, I'm basically just placing the value and then setting it once again. So whichever is selected from the dropdown, whichever option is selected from the dropdown, it's set then with set value. And unfortunately, I would have liked to have made these more reusable so that I didn't have to have two separate dropdown menus, but it was just a little bit too far for me at the time. So yeah, I did try and make these reusable, so I'd only have one component for a dropdown menu, but didn't succeed in that. With regard to the rest of my components, I do have a lot of tables in here. So for example, with the fixtures table, I'm importing a lot of the table features. And then I also have a couple of forms also. So I'm just using forms for my login, register, and reset password as well. So, and then many of these are somewhat like the Movies app also, where I'm displaying, you know, the team card and the team. Lastly, I'd just like to take a look at some of the pages which are using the components to display in the browser. So for example, with the dashboard page, I have a lot of variables here. This pull data variable, this is how I'm able to pull the data from the component and then be able to set it to fetch the data with the API call. So I'm using that, for example, in the dashboard page in two separate ways. So for the set year drop-down menu, when the year drop-down menu, and when a year is selected from that, using this, I can pull that from the component, pull that selection from the component, and then send it on to the API call. And also, this is where I'm using get teams. So the get teams function from the for the API call, and then as you can see, I have multiple excuse me, multiple components within the page. Same for fixtures as well. Many of these are quite similar, where I'm using fixtures, I'm using the calendar function, and again sending the selected date to the API call. So I have multiple pages here: home, log in, log out, register, reset, standings, which we've seen in the browser. And then I've stories for most of the components also. So that's really the most of my web application explained. Thank you.